September, year of our Lord 2019. Welcome to the John Moore Show. We begin our shows with something that very few top Democrats believe in. If they do say it, they don't really mean it. We begin our shows with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Prep tip of the day, I want you to make sure that your safe haven is prepared and ready. If you live there full time, that shouldn't be as much an issue. If it's a remote location from where you normally live, it becomes a bigger issue. So make sure everything is squared away, safe and secure, and ready for you to arrive, you and your team. We have patiently in the green room, my friend, Professor James McCanney. Professor McCanney taught astrophysics at Cornell University. He taught mathematics at Cornell University. He has not one, but two weekly radio shows, an accomplished amateur archaeologist, accomplished to the point where foreign governments consult with him concerning archaeology matters. Accomplished author, having authored, I believe, now 11 books with more on the way. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, John. How are you today?
Really good. Looks like we might get the first significant snow here in my neighborhood in years. We have not had more than half an inch of snow in at least 3 or 4 years. I'm predicting 3.5 inches of snow here in my neighborhood this coming Sunday, which is not a lot of snow. For somebody who spent a big chunk of their life in Minnesota, that's something that is called probably a light dusting up there in Minnesota, isn't it?
Yeah, we would call that a dusting.
Well, down here, the schools will close, commerce will be disrupted, everything changes with more than an inch of snow. And something I like to remind people, no matter where you are, every winter, there's tens of thousands of new drivers every year who've never driven in snow ever because they're brand new drivers. That's always something to keep in mind, isn't it, Jim?
Oh, yeah. We learned to drive and all the tricks of the trade. Back in the old days, you had the one rear-wheel drive car, which was really a treat to drive in the snow. I mean, it was terrible. The last time...
Yeah, go ahead.
The last time I happened to be in Minnesota, I was up on the Canadian border in early November, got caught in a horrific snowstorm, and I had to put 4 chains on an all-wheel drive car to get to the main road, and then drove for about 300 miles with horrific wind, like hurricane wind, cars all over the ditch. It was just, and I would call that kind of white-knuckle driving. But that's because I had experience since I was a kid. Like you're saying, right. Most people just can't handle that kind of driving. They have no idea how to manage with ice on the road and snow and blowing. And, it's...
Understood. Well, I had a similar experience. I was 17. I learned to drive my parents' 1959 Ford station wagon, which was a 6-cylinder manual shift, bias-ply tires. There was an event I wanted to go to on a Friday night, I think a basketball game, and I was given permission to take the family car. And just as I was leaving, it turned into blizzard conditions, and it was 20 miles one way to the basketball game. I decided to go ahead and drive anyway because I wanted to practice in the training of driving in these adverse conditions. And it was a challenge, Jim, to say the least. On these roads, which did not have salt, had not been plowed, and it was nighttime. But I managed to drive 40 miles under those adverse conditions and not damage the family car. And that's where I got my initial training in driving in those kind of conditions, which can be pretty severe. And there's lots of YouTube videos, by the way, of people going way too fast in those conditions and ending up in very serious, sometimes deadly situations. I saw one where a Chevy Suburban was on a 4-lane divided highway with a median going too fast on the icy road. got sideways, went across the median, and was hit sideways by a semi-tractor trailer, full impact. I doubt anybody survived that inside the Chevy Suburban. It was horrific. So just a quick heads up for everybody listening. If you're not used to driving in ice and snow, be cautious, be careful. Make sure that you just drive with speeds appropriate for the conditions. That's one of the main things, is not to go too fast. Right, Jim?
Well, the other thing is get off the road. Just recount another story. I was coming through Indiana one time, and it's famous for wintertime for sleet and rain, and then it freezes on the road. And so I'm coming up the kind of a very slight grade towards one of the overpass ramps, and about a few miles away, and the semi-truck in front of me, about half a mile in front of me, starts to slowly spin on the highway, just spinning. This is a 4-lane highway,
right?
With a big division in the middle, and he just starts spinning and spinning, and so he eventually just slides right off the side, and I took the next ramp and stopped at the very nearest motel and stayed overnight. And I figured that was a cheap way out. Whatever the hotel fee was
right.
worth it.
Absolutely. Well, there's several parts to this. First of all, if you live south of these really severe areas, I know the first time I saw this, I was shocked. I was surprised. I traveled into, I guess it was Iowa or maybe northern Illinois, and I started seeing the following, which I didn't know even existed. That was gates to prevent people from getting on the interstate highway, and gates to force people off the interstate highway. I didn't know such things existed, but once you get in these severe climate, snowy areas, it becomes so dangerous that that's what they have to do, is close the gate to force people off the highway and close the gate to prevent people from getting on the interstate highway. Well, Jim, people that live down south, they don't know these things even exist.
Yeah, well, it's, I'll tell you, living in Minnesota, remember The Perfect Storm?
Yes.
The movie, etc. There was 3 hurricanes that joined together in the North Atlantic, and one of them came across the Canadian from the west, across the Midwest, basically across the between Minnesota and Canada, and it dumped 3 feet of snow one day. And then the eye of the hurricane, himicane I call it, passed, so it was nice and sunny. And then the next day, it dumped another 36 inches. So they had literally 72 inches or 6 feet of snow on the ground, and that paralyzed Minnesota. That's what it takes in Minnesota to slow things down.
Well, my goodness. My Friday guest, Dr. Lynn Wilbert, he spent 3 winters in Minnesota, and before the fourth one, he said to his wife, "We're not doing this anymore." He's from St. Louis, native St. Louis, in which the British Foreign Service, the St. Louis, he wasn't the ambassador, but he was the emissary from the United Kingdom, lived 3 doors down from me in St. Louis, and I found out from his son, my buddy, that the British Foreign Service considered St. Louis a tropical assignment. So anyway, Dr. Wilbert had 3 winters, and he told his wife, "No, we're not doing this anymore, honey. We're going back to St. Louis."
Wow.
I don't particularly care for cold weather or winter or snow. I'll deal with it as necessary, but it's really not my favorite thing.
Well, there's a flip side of this, John, and we have this expression from Minnesota. I haven't been there for a long time, but the expression is it keeps the riffraff out.
Well,
you can't sleep in the street in Minnesota. You cannot be, there are places for homeless people, but they tend to leave.
Well, I consider riffraff is kind of a loose term, but
it is.
It has become the home of people who have very freakish, barbaric, dangerous beliefs. Female genital mutilation, marrying their cousins, never ever touching soap their entire lives. And I haven't even said who they are, have I?
No.
Muslims, the Somalians. Female genital mutilation, never touched soap in their life, marrying their cousins. Yes, a freakish, dangerous, barbaric group of people with a freakish, barbaric, dangerous belief system, and culture, and language, and religion. How
John,
do people from the tropical Africa end up in Minnesota with those winters? The first winter these people are there, they must think they're at the end of the planet.
Well, John, what they do is they live in small communities. They do not blend into the U.S. culture at all. They speak their own language. They completely swarm the social services, and that's what they do. They go to the doctor every day, or if it's not the doctor, it's the social office or something. And so, like one time, I had a issue I had to deal with down at a courthouse. So I went there and I waited all day as the Somalians had their court-assigned interpreter, attorney, and social worker all there while the woman and man fought over some, marital issue or something like that. And the wife had the same. And, of course, there was no income involved in any of this. So the state was paying for all of this. And, I, as a tax-paying regular citizen, had to wait all day in line behind this nonsense. And so anyway, yeah, it's kind of a bastion of liberalism.
Yeah, kind of. Well, I don't know how this all got started. It was probably some do-gooders that thought it would be great to bring these people there.
Yeah, it was under Obama. It was mainly under Obama.
That recently? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it started before him, but
it did, but it went.
It was most likely some liberal Christian do-gooders who thought they were helping these poor people. But what you touched on, Jim, they have no intention of assimilation. They have no intention of learning English. They have no intention of becoming productive members of our society. Of course, if you have an IQ of 70 or 75, there's not much you can do except work in a sheltered workshop under close supervision, packing items for shipment with these plastic peanuts. Not much you can do in a modern society with a 70 or 75 IQ, is there?
Right. There are places where they, if like a local Minnesota resident moves in, they have a term for that. It's like trying to white an area. But anyway, they live in small community areas, don't assimilate, don't change, and just suck the social systems dry.
With training and assistance to suck the system dry. Jim, when you come for a place with where you've never seen a flush toilet in your life, no hot and cold running water, electricity, if it's available, is undependable, dirt roads and no telephones, you must think you've died and gone to heaven to be in Minnesota.
Well, yeah, but there again, they simply live on the system, and so they don't, they don't assimilate. They don't, like you say, they don't have productive lives, and that's the lifestyle. But the whole idea of America being the melting pot and bringing people is that they assimilate into, we're not talking about destruction of societies in their history, etc. We're talking about becoming part of this melting pot. So if they're not melting into the society, they're not doing what traditionally the United States is all about. So when they pander to, the Statue of Liberty says, "Give me your weak and poor," etc., what they're talking about is coming here and assimilating, and this idea of diversity, where the people remain diverse, is not the point. That's one of these bat crazy liberal concepts that is tearing this country apart.
Well, there's a historical record for what happens when this kind of migration takes place, and it's never had a good ending ever for many, many centuries. And it won't have a good ending here either. I started calling our opposition, the socialists, communists, Democrats, Muslims. Their agenda is to destroy our country, and unlimited migration of people who have no intention of becoming Americans, learning our language, becoming productive citizens. That's one of the key things that President Trump understands. President Trump is stopping and has the liberals outraged because he's bringing their plan to an end, isn't he?
Well, that's exactly what's going on. That's what all of this insanity is about going on in Washington today. But they're like somebody sliding down the sewer tube that's at an angle and screaming and yelling all the way. They're going into their own abyss. It's just when this impeachment thing will play out in the next few weeks. But John, I have a comment.
Please.
That this will go on. This will not end with the impeachment, because these people that are in Congress are crazy. I mean, these people are legally nuts. The Schiffs and the Pelosi's and there's a question people have been asking: where's Schumer in all of this? You have not seen his little face with his little glasses on the end of his nose.
Well, you know why? Guy? He's smart enough to know that these people are making idiots themselves. He has. We have a break on him. 800.
I hear the music coming there. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 11th of December. We are going on a cruise. What a great time, the second week of February, to be away from the snow, the ice, the cold, all that stuff. The second week of February. The John Moore Patriot Symposium Cruise. Details at my website at thelibertyman.com. Our cruise director should be glad to talk to you and get you a full-color brochure, and we still have some cabins left, I believe. Betsy Murphy, her telephone, 636-530-9502. I say again, 636-530-9502. Visiting with Professor James McCanney. His website's linked on my links page at thelibertyman.com. Jim, you've got not one, but two weekly radio shows. Let people know how they can listen live to the archives, if you would, please, sir. Every Thursday evening at 6 p.m. Central Time from WWCR, Nashville, Tennessee, the James McCanney Science Hour at the Crossroads. That's my weekly radio show that's been airing for about 20 years. All of the ways to listen that re-airs many times, all the ways to listen are listed on my webpage in a subpage, and also the archives are there, going back about 20 years, all of the archives available. And also my paid cast, $3.95 per month for an extra deep dive into scientific topics. And that's also available on my webpage. Plus, I have now a Patreon page, which is highlighting my paid casts. It's another way for people to support me, and that just went up. That just is barely getting started, but all of that information on my webpage, which is linked from your page, John.
Absolutely. Well, Jim, what updates, if any, do you have from the wing generator, sir?
Well, we're moving forward, and what I cannot believe is some of the misinformation that's planted out there, and people are buying this what's happening in the whole what you call alternative energy industry, which I don't believe I'm part of. I'm the alternative to alternative energy with the wing generator. But people are coming to the conclusion that three-blade wind turbines and solar don't work, which they don't. And I predicted this in my 2009 book, McCanny Wing Generator World Energy Project, which has an addendum, The Myth of Alternative Energy. But people are coming to this conclusion, so they're going out and marching up and down the street saying that nuclear power is green, and they're biting this hook, which was planted a decade ago by GE and Siemens. They put out all of this equipment that does not work. Does not work. They sucked the industry dry of money with government subsidies, put all this equipment out there that doesn't work, and then, the conclusion is that we got to go back to nuclear, which is Siemens and GE's core business. So this has been a giant scam, and I'm trying to educate people out there that are jumping up and down, complaining that alternative energy doesn't work. Well, they bit the whole thing hook, line, and sinker. And so what I'm trying to educate people about is that wind is the solution, and the McCanny Wing Generator is the solution, but it's like a bad vaudeville act trying to follow with a good one, where the people are already throwing tomatoes and lettuce heads at the stage. So they have poisoned the whole industry on purpose.
Well, they were looking at the long term, weren't they? They're planning years in advance, weren't they, sir?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, just take a look at a three-blade wind turbine. Those skinny little sticks out there, the wind just blows right through it. I mean, who could ever imagine that would capture wind energy? It's a joke. It's absurd. They have a motor inside there that makes them turn. So when you drive through a field of thousands of those things, none of them are turning, maybe one or two. They're turning because there's a motor inside them making them turn. That's how bad it is.
Well, this brings up an interesting point, if it could be done, to get schematics showing these electric motors turning these blades, and then publishing the schematics that demonstrate that they're actually not making electricity, they're consuming electricity with electric motors to give the appearance of the wind turning these things. What would the possibility of that be, Jim?
Well, it's one of the most highly guarded secrets of that whole industry is how much energy they consume making them turn. These blades weigh 65 tons each. So you're dealing with a thing up there that's about close to 200 tons of synthetic material sticking out there, these little thin sticks. And so to make them turn takes a tremendous amount of energy. And the wind cannot start these things at all. And so it's an absolute absurdity. So unless you're in a place where there's tremendous wind, these things simply don't work.
I would we got a caller on hold here. We got a break. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday. It is Wednesday, the 11th day of December, 2 weeks from today will be Christmas, by the way. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. We're finding that one section of my website is getting a lot more traction. Doug Hagman, my friend Doug, I'm with Doug every Monday for an hour on his TV show, Daily Intelligence Briefing at my website. A friend of mine I met while I was conducting a homicide about 7 or 8 years ago, former counterintelligence agent. He puts this together every day. It's his retirement hobby. It's a lot of work. If you want to keep up to date on a daily basis on what's going on around the planet, the Daily Intelligence Briefing, open source intelligence, is where you want to go at thelibertyman.com. If you have arthritis pain and you're tired of it, well, it's time to get an energy cleaner. A lot of people give themselves a gift during Christmas. And if you want to give yourself a gift this Christmas, you and your spouse, get yourself an energy cleaner, a mattress pad to go with it, and deal with the arthritis pain in a healthy way, instead of the dangerous way with all the meds that the medical doctors offer. To help you get a great night's sleep also. I get a great night's sleep every night with my energy cleaner. $285 shipping included. Keep in mind, I do something your doctor probably won't do. I offer a 90-day money-back guarantee. That's from me to you personally. Details at my website at thelibertyman.com, where you can place your order using PayPal, MasterCard, Visa. Toll-free hour line 24 hours a day. Here it is, twice slowly. 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Visiting with Professor James McCanney. His website's linked to my links page at thelibertyman.com. Jim, we got a caller on hold here. John in Texas. Good morning, John.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
You were talking about nuclear, Professor McCanney. You were talking about nuclear power earlier. I have heard of. You're talking about uranium. You're mostly talking about uranium reactors. There, correct?
I'm not sure what you're mentioning. I didn't mention anything today about nuclear power, I don't believe.
I thought you said. Well, you said something about the scam of alternative energy being turned to
returning to nuclear power. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's what you meant.
Yeah.
That basically means uranium and plutonium reactors correct?
No, any nuclear, whether it's futuristic fusion or whatever, thorium, whatever, flavor de jour you're talking about. Nuclear power is a terrible idea, and as any heat-generating form of energy is. It's a terrible idea. It's 80% inefficient. You have 80% of the heat going into the atmosphere immediately or into the environment. It's terrible. So any nuclear or any coal, natural gas form of energy is horrific, or including all nuclear. Including geothermal is not green. You're taking heat from underground, which is trapped there, and exposing it to the atmosphere. It's a terrible idea.
And what are the problems with solar?
They don't work. The solar panels they're making today have a lifetime of about 5 years. The recycling drama is about to hit. It is already. Solar only works a few hours of the day. It's a terrible idea.
Okay, there's too many variables involved in solar. Also, I have a question about a comment. This has to do with Carl Sagan. I don't know if this is puffing on his part, but he seems to be under. He said he made a statement shortly before he died that he said that about scientific illiteracy. He said that we live in a scientific age that so many that have control over its use are completely ignorant of science. And he says that this power of ignorance, they know nothing of science, and it this combination of ignorance and power is going to blow up in our face. Exactly what does he mean by that? It seems that's a rather vague way of putting it. What does he mean it's going to blow up in our face?
Well, I suspect, I really wasn't around Carl that much, especially during his end days, but I can't really speak for Carl, but what I suspect he was talking about was not enough people believed him. His book, Cosmos, is the biggest selling book in the history of the world. It's been pushed and pushed and pushed. It's one of the biggest purchased books for Christmas. It's been read by more people than any other book except for the Gutenberg Bible. So Carl's terribly, terribly incorrect information has been promulgated. It was the blueprint for modern science, for everything that modern science is supposed to stick to, including global warming. I just see the person of the year on Time magazine is Greta Thunberg, a bubble-headed little girl that's being used and to promote Carl Sagan's baloney science. And so anyway, Carl Sagan is one of the most influential and worst people in the last 5 decades. I'll simply put it that way. As far as leading people down the wrong road, contributing absolutely all incorrect science. And Carl Sagan got his fame because he denounced Velikovsky and led the charge against reason, and really Velikovsky did amazing work, and Sagan got his kudos, his fame, because he led the charge against Velikovsky. So anyway, I have no regard for Carl Sagan. He's a complete idiot, a terrible scientist, and is being promoted as some kind of God, intelligent person that we should all follow. It's just horrific. But that's part of the overall agenda of the CIA, which took control of science decades ago and promulgating completely incorrect information on the youth of the world, who are now grown up. So,
okay. Anything else, John? Before we move on.
There's one comment about him. There was a book several years ago, back in 1984, written by a Mr. William R. Fix. It's called The Bone Peddlers, and he made comments in it. It's called Selling Evolution, of which Carl Sagan has been a major salesman of Darwinianism. And he says that in his book Cosmos, he says that Carl Sagan was a very poor, that his advocation of Darwin was poorly, his advocacy of it was done badly. I think he said it was just a rehash of everything, of stuff that they've been saying about it over and over for decades. Nothing new about it, but he said he does it bad. He advocated Darwinism very badly.
Well, yeah, and all of Cosmos is bad, and especially evolution. Evolution does not explain what we see. In their biggest piece of information, or the biggest part of their theory, is called the missing link. It's there in cosmology, evolution, and it's also there in biological evolution. They rely on a missing link, something that ain't there, that you can't see or find, just like dark matter is the central core issue of cosmology, something that you can't define, can't see, can't find, and they just gave a Nobel Prize for people who worked in that field. That's how ridiculous it is. So, anyway, that's my 2-minute version for radio.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, thank you very much.
Okay. Call numbers 800-313-9443.
John, the whole issue with science is Carl Sagan's attitude was that he's smart, you're dumb, and that you should simply listen to what he says because they have it all figured out and you're too stupid to understand it, so don't even try, and just honor the intelligence of Carl Sagan and everybody that works around him. I did, and believe me, these people are a bunch of morons. NASA scientists, and what I ultimately discovered is these people are tier 2 scientists. The people that worked at Cornell and the people that publish in peer-reviewed journals are tier 2 scientists, and the real science goes on above them that you never see. That's where the real science is, and that's the science that's being blocked from the public.
Well, we do what we can, Jim. I know your outreach continues to inform and educate, and I've said previously that when Cornell University thought they were silencing you, they actually gave you a worldwide platform instead of one limited to a few hundred students a semester, didn't they?
No, absolutely. Yeah, my classroom is a lot bigger, and it'd be interesting to see what students are out there that I had in classes that are out there listening today going, yeah, I knew that guy. That'd be interesting.
It would be. It would be. What direction you want to go next, Jim?
Well, I mentioned briefly this Time magazine. The Time magazine has turned into a complete political hack. I mean, it's not worth the paper, so a total waste of paper. But to have Greta Thunberg as the person of the year, and this thing too, where they're talking about the power of youth. No, this is using youth in a very deceptive, divisive way. And Time magazine is just a pitiful example of controlled news media, fake news. So anyway, just a quick comment on that. But, you know, John, I think everything we're seeing today, there's an amazing smoke screen going on. And whenever you see a smoke screen, something else is going on in the background.
Right. Right.
So right. That's what's going on. These people are, and even this impeachment thing, that's a smokescreen. Other stuff is going on in the background, I guarantee you. So, you know, that we have to be really observant and watchful. Absolutely. Because these people are positioning themselves to set a trap on the United States.
Well, they are. We got a caller and hold here. We got Elizabeth in New York. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Professor McCanney. The reason why I'm calling in, a lot of people are speculating and talking about this black hole that scientists have discovered. I was wondering if you have any information that might shed some light on this, Professor McCanney.
Well, I've seen probably 10 black hole discovery stories in the last couple of weeks, so I am not sure which one you might be talking about. Is this the one where they took a picture of it?
Well, it was one that they said that it was the largest that they had ever seen, and that a certain part of the galaxy was either brighter. I thought they said it was brighter.
Yeah. Anyway, I've just seen so many of these. It's just nonsense, complete and utter nonsense. The whole issue, if you see a black hole, you should see a change in the frequency of the light that's coming out of it. They don't see any of this. There's no corroborating data. It's the worst science that I've ever seen. You know, a while ago they said there was a picture of a black hole, and they published it. There were weeks of drama that they were going to release something that would captivate the world, and then it was like a picture with a black spot in the middle. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I saw that article. It was actually a picture of someone's lit cigarette. I did see that, but my question is, okay, the black hole, what effect would it have, like, on the sun or other planets? If there is truly one in our solar system, what effect would it have?
First of all, there is no black hole. That's a theoretical piece of malarkey. It's black holes. it's a complicated story, but there is no such thing as a black hole. Einstein, at the end of his life, wrote a book. It's called Out of My Later Years, and in there he basically says that general relativity is false. I mean, the whole issue of space-time and gravitational curvature is valid in the tensor. There's a lot of it that's valid, but when they start throwing in the issue of supermassive black holes, that's a takeoff, and he denounced that. He denounced the Eddington experiment, which was a cherry-picked data by Arthur Eddington. There's no basis for general relativity, the part that leads you up to black holes or leads you down the black hole road, the ivory tower. No, there is no such thing as a black hole. And they just gave a Nobel Prize for dark matter, which they can't define, can't find, don't know what it is. That just tells you how warped science is today. So the fact that you call in and on a radio show and ask about black holes, something that doesn't exist, just shows how off the charts science has become.
Well, a lot of people are talking about it, and I just wanted your insight on it, because maybe it would clarify some things for those that are speculating out there.
There's no black holes near us.
Well, it's clarified. There's no black holes. End of discussion.
Yeah, okay. That's pretty much it.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
All right, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, back down to planet Earth here.
Right. Right.
Yeah, this science is so awry these days. It's just bonkers nuts. That's all I can tell you. And there again, that's on purpose. And this all began with Carl Sagan, where what they did is they listed a bunch of so-called scientific facts, totally unrelated, and that's what people think is science. And that's why, by the way, there's this absolute avalanche of garbage science on YouTube, etc., because there is no real central science anymore.
Hold that thought, Jim. Hold that thought. We've got a break. We'll be right back. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Jim, this hour just flown by here. We've only got a couple of shows left to be 2020, sir.
I know it. It's pretty scary. Are we going to make it to the end of the year?
Well, I think we will. Actually, we've got one more show left because next week, the week after that, is Christmas. So we've got one more show this year, and that will be next Wednesday, the 18th.
Wow.
How about that?
That is something. Well, I'm gearing up for next year. This year was not the greatest year for me. It was a struggle in a lot of ways, in terms of financial, in terms of working and building things up. But my goal right now is by Christmas to have many things in place that I've been working on for a long time. One of them, just a quick mention again, I'm now selling shipping containers, brand new shipping containers, never used. And so I have those available on my webpage. That's just one example of things that I've been working on to get them in position to offer to the public. So I'm looking forward to next year and hopefully continuing to educate the public about things like black holes and fake science and what real
wing
science
generators
is. Wing generators and
right, the real deal. The wing generators, the real deal.
That's right.
Well, it's been a unusual year for myself, as my listeners know, and I'm building a new life, and life does go on, doesn't it, sir?
Well, yeah, life is for the living, and it's the ancient Greeks had an interesting attitude. was that the gods who were supposedly above everything were jealous of man because man had a body, and so that's interesting that they should take that attitude. That with all of the difficulties and problems we have with living beings, it's actually a great gift, and we should look at it that way because it really is a great gift to be able to live in this physical world. So, but then understanding the spiritual side of the world too, that people have a spiritual side to them, and I talk about that on my show and in my paid casts, that people have lost sight of that, and I think that's one of the biggest messages you can see, whether it's Time Magazine and Greta Thunberg being the Person of the Year baloney, or scientific baloney, or impeachment, is that all of this is a smokescreen to keep you from doing what you're really supposed to be doing on this planet. We're spending inordinate amount of time fighting all of this completely bat crazy stuff, and we're supposed to be doing other things with our valuable time here.
Absolutely. Well, one more show, and we'll be into 2020. The show after the show after that will be in 2020. What a year it's been, and 2020 will be a year to remember, won't it, sir?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to the big wing generators being rolled out. That's my goal.
Jim, thank you, sir. I'll be back next week.
Thank you, John.
Top of the hour break. We'll be back with my friend Jeff Nyquist. Stay tuned. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here, our second hour on Wednesday, the 11th day of December. One more live show left this year. That will be next week. And the show after that, next live show, for a Wednesday, I should say, for a Wednesday. Our perfect tip of the day is to make sure that your safe haven is prepared and ready. Obviously, if you live there, that should not be too much of an issue. If it's at a location you do not reside at day to day, it does become an issue. There's lots of things that you need to be aware of. Just make sure that safe haven is squared away, set up, safe and secure, and ready for you and your team to get there if and when the time arrives. We have patient waiting agreement, my friend Jeff Nyquist. Jeff has a website. It's jrnyquist.blog. I say again, jrnyquist.blog. And we're going to be talking about the events of the day, especially concerning the international communist conspiracy. Good morning, Jeff.
Hey, good morning, John.
Well, sir, I was reading a summary. It's written in a installment series type of writing installments at survivalblog.com. The French commentator of the 19th century who was writing about liberty and the law, he wrote a short book called The Law, which was republished in 1950, new translation. And it's just as insightful and just as relevant today as when it was published, which I believe was about 1850. I'll get that citation for us here in a moment. I wasn't prepared to do that, but here we'll have that momentarily. Things don't change. Human nature doesn't change, does it?
No, it does not.
And the author was Frederick Bastiat. The title of the publication is The Law, republished in 1950 with a new translation. The man was very insightful of human nature, what governments do, what they don't do, how governments do things properly, how governments do things improperly. And the main thrust is the dangers of socialism creeping into a government and the very serious adverse consequences of that, which is what we talk about pretty much every week, don't we?
Yeah, we do. There's another good writer who's also French, named Gustave Le Bon, who also wrote about socialism. and government. And he specialized in describing why socialism, or how socialism functions, why socialism is going to prevail to some extent and then fail. And he wrote a book called The Psychology of Revolutions, and then he wrote a book, The Psychology of Socialism, and he wrote a book called The Crowd. And in those books, he describes how ideas can be like the common cold. And you can catch those ideas, and it can make society sick. He said the problem is that people are not very discriminating. Your mom used to say, wash your hands and don't touch that, it's full of germs. Well, don't read Marx, it's full of germs.
Right.
But, people do read these things and pick up the wrong ideas from them. And, I've read Marx, but I knew not to believe it. A lot of people don't. They read it and go, oh, it's true. Why they think it's true, I don't know. But they are drawn to it.
Well, I've noticed. I've been politically active for half a century, and I've noticed two kinds of people drawn to communism. Generally, the leadership tends to be the children of wealthy people, grew up with privilege, private schools, all the perks that go with growing up in wealth, and they feel ashamed of their privilege and embarrassed by their privilege, and they intentionally turn their back on their privilege and want to become accepted by people who don't have privilege and show how they are also a common person, and they want to raise up the living and the amenities that poor people have. The other group I see are well-meaning Americans, just average guys and gals from average backgrounds who believe that communism will help everybody have a better life. And they have good intentions, but the communists refer to them as useful idiots. The true leadership is neither one of those groups. The true leadership are people who want to acquire power and fame and glory for themselves at the expense of everybody else. Would that be a fairly accurate analysis, Jeff?
Yeah, that's what people run into. It was recently I read in a book by a communist leader in the United States who left communism. He said that the leaders of the communist movement tend to be have a kind of criminal mentality. They want power. They will do anything. They're not very nice. They fight among each other. They do not have any real charity in their own hearts. And he said that you tend to find the people who have real concerns for the working class are the rank and file. People who aren't maybe intelligent enough to be leaders, who kind of believe the rhetoric. But the leaders, he says, is very rare. He said John Reed, I think we talked about John Reed on the show, was an exception. He was a leader who actually believed it, and then, the tragic story was that he willed himself to die, basically, because he couldn't forgive himself for becoming a communist, because it was so vile, what he discovered that it was really all about. That's the thing. It is a false religion where they're seeking the salvation of mankind through politics, and the leaders are serving themselves. The followers are dupes. They're the useful idiots. and that it is a tragic story, especially for the 20th century, and the 21st we'll see. Right now, you see all those Democratic candidates up there. What they're espousing is socialism. It's really what is behind most of the things they say, and they're bringing the United States towards socialism. Well, that would be a tremendous tragedy if they succeeded, and it's hard to know how the country will hold out against a political party like that. That is inevitably, in time, the pendulum will swing to the Democrats, and they'll win, and they'll control both houses of Congress again and the White House. And with those kind of toxic ideas, how will the economy survive? How will business in the country survive?
It won't.
No.
It can't.
No.
Professor McCanney made a comment last hour that I hadn't thought about, but I think it's very insightful. Chuck Schumer has been noticeably absent from all this hysteria concerning impeachment. And my response was, my gut reaction was, Schumer's smart enough to understand this thing's going to explode, and he wants to stay clear of it to keep his reputation untarnished by the insanity of this impeachment and exploding in the face of people who support it. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jeff?
I hadn't noticed Schumer.
Well, he's just not around. He's just. Chuck Schumer can get in front of a microphone and TV camera anytime he wants to. He's got that kind of gravitas.
Well, I think he's going to have he's going to have no choice at some point, because they are going to vote for impeachment. I believe it seems quite clear from watching the judiciary hearings. They're going to vote it, and it's going to go to the Senate. We're going to have a trial. It's not going to be the Congress. It's not going to be the House of Representatives, in the limelight. It's going to be the Senate, and that's the house that Schumer's from. And so Schumer is, I cannot imagine that he will vote for acquittal of the president. I cannot imagine it.
There's two parts. Well, I agree with you. There's two parts to it. What level of participation will he have in the impeachment process at the Senate? And then, of course, the second part, how will he vote? It will be interesting to make observations of both those matters, won't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I guess we haven't seen an impeachment in a while, but of course the counsel, the lawyers, and the judges, in that case the Supreme Court judges, will perhaps have the starring roles because they'll be doing most of the talking together with the witnesses. As we saw with the Clinton impeachment, the Clinton impeachment trial was that 1999? I think it was. Oh, don't. Right?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't have those numbers here in front of me.
I read the special counsel's book on it, whose name now evades me, but it was. It is going to be dramatic, and they want to get this vote done by Christmas. And I assume
they will. Christmas is 2 weeks from today.
There'll be some kind of recess for the holidays, and then they'll be back, and the show will be on. Hard to imagine, isn't it?
It is. It is, but there will be articles of impeachment voted on and passed, and looks like the impeachment of President Clinton began in 1998, October the 8th. October the 8th, 1998. So that's been quite a while, obviously. And it had to do with the lies concerning his relationship with this young woman, not the relationship itself, but the lies that were followed up the relationship. Very, very unusual legal construct. I spent an entire morning with one of the attorneys who was one of the prosecutors in the impeachment, and it was a fascinating morning, but I don't want to get into that. Well, I'm convinced that the impeachment process will explode in their face. There's people speculating there's enough votes in the Senate to convict the president. I don't believe they are. And what are your thoughts on the odds of conviction?
Well, let's wait and see. I don't think, it's hard to believe that the Democrats would have gone down this road without having some kind of end game in mind. Of course, it could be that they were just simply forced to do this because they had made such a big fuss about this whole business of Trump that they had to go through with impeachment because their own voting base would abandon them at the polls next year. So that they had to go through impeachment even knowing they were going to lose.
Right. They're motivating President Trump's base. There's another aspect of this, and I've read that the sons of at least half a dozen very high-level Democratic office holders basically were doing the same thing that Hunter Biden was doing, collecting payoffs, which is a consequence of money laundering of U.S. funds going to Ukraine. Corrupt officials keeping a percentage and the rest coming back to the sons of these high-level American elected officials. If that's true,
it's funny you should.
You've heard that also, Jeff?
Yeah, you should. Yeah, I did from a Ukrainian source. Told me this some weeks ago when I started, getting interested in this, and I started asking him. He sent me translations of Ukrainian interviews with the Ukrainian deputy prosecutor of the man who was fired because of Biden, and he laid it all out, and it was, it was shocking because he basically was saying that what you just said in the interview. He was basically implying, and of course I asked my friend, what is it that people understand in Ukraine about this from the Ukrainian press and this report? It was that under the Obama administration, they were sending aid. They sent non-military aid to Ukraine after the invasion and annexation of Crimea by Russia. But the deal was that there were these kickbacks were expected to American officials with each installment of the aid. So the Ukrainians kept the aid. There was winking about how the Ukrainians were going to use the aid. So I think that on the Ukrainian side, people were pocketing the money. And then to look the other way, the Americans were getting their share of money.
Right.
And so the implication was that this was a dirty kind of traffic where foreign aid was being used to corrupt both sides of the fence, both the Americans who were giving the aid and the Ukrainians who were receiving the aid. And of course, this... Right. Yeah.
Well, part of the plan was that Hillary would be elected, and this corruption, the money laundering, would never be uncovered because Hillary Clinton and her Department of Justice would make sure it was never uncovered. Donald Trump being elected threw a monkey wrench in that whole plan, that whole level of corruption and crime, didn't it?
Yeah, you would think that if Barr was the real deal, he would already be, convening grand juries over this. Because
we don't know. I agree with you, but we don't know what's going on.
It seems that it's been common knowledge among. I mean, I have a friend who is friends with former prime ministers and government people in Ukraine, and it's been fairly common knowledge over there for a while. It should be that a lot of people have figured this out here some time ago already.
Right. Well, the alternative media is going to be reporting on it, and we are the alternative media, and we are reporting it, and we do have a break.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org. and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Okay, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 11th of December. I don't know about you, but I really don't care for winter. I deal with it. I get through it okay. But I will be on a Caribbean cruise, the John Moore Patriot Symposium cruise, the second week of February. If you want to join us, as far as I know, there's still cabins available. What a great time to be away from the snow, the ice, the cold, all the rest of the stuff that we deal with in wintertime. Details at my website at thelibertyman.com. Our cruise director, she's a professional, a wife of a very dear friend of mine. Her name is Betsy Murphy. Here's her telephone. She'd be glad to talk to you, get you a full-color brochure. 636-530-9502. I say again, 636-530-9502. Visiting with Jeff Nyquist. His website's jrnyquist.blog. I say again, jrnyquist.blog. And Jeff, you have a dog.
Yeah, my neighbor has a very loud dog. I'm afraid.
That's okay. It adds a little color to the show.
Yeah, the kids are fussing across the street, so yes.
Okay. We have a caller from the future calling from Thursday, and that would be Alex in New Zealand. Good morning, Alex.
Hello, dear Chief and John. I would like to bring an update from Hong Kong.
Please do.
I'm not sure if Chief will be surprised of this. Hong Kong is going to become a surveillance state, similar to Xinjiang in China. And apparently the Hong Kong Democratic Party helped the Chinese Communist Party by enacting legislation where these smart lampposts that have recognition technology in them are being built in Hong Kong, and also they can be seen around Hong Kong now. And another thing that the Hong Kong current government are currently planning is that by 2020, they're planning to bring in the China's social credit system. And apparently, a lot of Hong Kong people, they don't know that the Hong Kong government are actually doing this.
Amazing. Jeff, you got any follow-up or response to what Alex is telling us, sir?
Yeah, for those who don't know, the Chinese social credit system is you're basically digitally monitored, and they use facial recognition technology, and they track you, and they give you a score, like you've been naughty or nice, sort of like the Santa Claus song. Only they're pretty serious about it. If you're nice, you get things. If you're naughty, you don't get things, and maybe you even get arrested and put in the Lao guy. So it's it's something. And there's people, by the way, who want to bring that system here to the United States. They put it on your phone.
Who would those people be?
Your phone will then spy on you, and then tell on you what you're really doing with your time. And then you'll get, you were helping people or you weren't. You were selfish today. You were a good socialist today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the update there, Alex. Anything else?
That's all, dear Chief and John.
Okay. Well, don't be a stranger. Give us updates as necessary. Okay, Alex.
Thank you, John.
Okay. Thank you for the call. Well, Jeff, we clearly have a worldwide audience. You you can't get any farther from where you are, Jeff, or where I am, where you find a majority population of Caucasian English-speaking people than New Zealand. It's as far away as you can get on this planet to find that kind of country. So it's a worldwide audience here on the John Moore Radio Show.
Yeah, that would be true. Yeah, that's how many thousands of miles away, New Zealand?
Well, the planet's 24,000 miles in circumference, unless you have some kind of detachment from reality and think the world is flat. Of course, it's the middle of the night over there. Jeff, how could the world be flat and be completely dark in one part of the world and midday, high noon on another part of the world?
Yeah, that would be hard for someone who believes in a flat Earth to explain.
It's actually a growing movement, and people, some otherwise really bright, intelligent people, actually buy into that, and it's a pretty amazing dysfunction.
Yeah,
I think.
I had a German reader contact me about, why aren't you a flat earther? And I was quite hurt, and I was shocked because her father, she admitted, was a ship captain, a merchant ship captain. And I said, well, I mean, didn't your father could explain this to you better than I could? But you know how a ship seems to go as it goes farther away, the mast is pretty soon you only see the mast, right? And the body of the ship is disappearing. How is that possible if the Earth is not curved? The surface of the Earth doesn't have a curve to it.
And the response was? Her response was?
It's very convoluted. She had a convoluted way of explaining it. And it was, she attempted to be somewhat condescending in explaining it,
right.
But...
Right,
yeah,
right.
You're
an idiot because you don't believe what I believe. Yeah, I understand. Here's our break. Yeah. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 11th day of December. My website is thelibertyman.com. We have a lot of discretionary time. Many people take off work between Christmas and New Year's time. People will be watching more movies and TV shows than they typically do. I'll probably be doing the same thing. And that brings up our project of locating and finding images of continents with different coastlines, new coastlines. If you find one on a movie or TV show, get that screen capture to me. You get your choice of any of my 6 DVDs as a thank you. It's a long and growing list. We start the 4th year of this project in a couple of weeks, and let's keep that list growing. It's a lot of fun. Also, my website, people looking forward to improving their health over the next year. If that means getting relief from arthritis pain, I got something that will help you. If it means sleeping as good as a small child every night like I do, I got something that will help you. It's called the Energy Cleaner. Are you doubting Thomas? I encourage that. I encourage being a doubting Thomas. And to take care of that issue, I offer a 90-day money-back guarantee on the Energy Cleaner. That's what I do for me to you personally. Got time to get your order in, get it shipped, and get delivery before Christmas. Right there at my website, you can place your order using PayPal, MasterCard, Visa. You can also call my toll-free order line for your energy cleaner and your mattress pad to go with it. My toll-free order line is 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Visiting with Jeff Nyquist. His website's jrnyquist.blog. And Jeff, right now in Pakistan, it's 8:34 p.m. It'll be midnight in 3.5 hours.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. I don't want to dwell on it. I had the first call I had on this flat Earth thing was about 3 or 4 years ago. I let the guy talk for about 2 or 3 minutes, and I let him know that he would never be back on this show again with a call promoting his bizarre belief system. Jeff, are you working on your next article for your website?
I sent you the link. The article came out last night. It was Joseph McCarthy and George Marshall. It's an article I've been planning to write for a long time. I've been doing I did the research for it over the last year and a half, and it's something that relates to today because George Marshall is a sort of an icon of World War II generals, and people call him a hero. Even though he wasn't an actual troop leader, he didn't. He
was more of a logistics guy, a planner. I mean, we always hear about Eisenhower and MacArthur and Patton. General Marshall was kind of in the background. I mean, you heard his name, but what did this guy do?
Yeah, he was the chief of staff, and you're exactly right. He was into organizing logistics.
Very important. There was
he coordinated generals. He basically found corps commanders and army commanders and put them together and so on and then organized logistics. But he also argued for strategy. He argued for certain strategies, like the invasion of France. And he also was the chief military advisor to President Roosevelt.
Right.
And
which brings up a scene. I don't know if you're a guy who likes high-performance automobiles, but the recent film, it may still be in the theater some places, Ford versus Ferrari. There was a scene where Henry Ford II is talking to Carroll Shelby and talks about how Ford's the great role that Ford Motor Company played in World War II in manufacturing tanks and trucks and whatever else they manufactured. The American industry really stepped up to the plate for that period of time, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, all the industries that were capable of producing consumer goods could be converted into producing military goods. And they did. They stepped up. But one of the things they needed was the repeal of a lot of the New Deal legislation, which was preventing them from reviving the economy itself. And they repealed a lot of that during World War II because with the regulations imposed on them, they couldn't produce the weapons that were needed, which is something a lot of people don't know.
Well, fast forward 75 years to right now, where you got President Trump reversing the policies that have been hindering industry in the present day, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's very similar. Trump has really undone more regulations, I think, than any president since this World War II period, where they repealed a lot of the New Deal regulations to allow the industries to build the tanks and the bombers and the fighters and the ships.
There's a belief based on no evidence among liberals and Democrats that our successful economy is Obama's legacy, that President Trump just inherited something that Obama started. Nothing could be further from the truth, could it?
Well, these are the same people who believe the Venezuelan economy was successful. I was working for an editor at the time, a younger person who'd taken over the job at the place I was writing, and I got an earful about how I had criticized the Venezuelan economy. And because I'd written an article saying that it was all smoke and mirrors, that the economy was really starting to go down the tubes. This was several months before it actually went down the tubes. Of course, I ended up being fired from that job because I was right. About the time it became clear I was right.
After it became clear that you were right, then you were fired?
Yeah. Yeah. So
not before. Now I can see them firing now.
Not before. I worked for an older fellow. Yeah, I worked for an older fellow who, but it's who was pretty respectful. But this younger guy, he just couldn't understand my point of view. He was in his 30s, and people in their 30s, when they encounter my or your ideas of things, they're almost enraged at our stupidity, John.
Right. Well, let them be enraged, and that's the way it is. By the way, the call number 800. The call number is 800-313-9443. Well, it's ongoing business that you and I are in of educating the public about the true nature of international communism, the true nature of what the Democrats are promoting. Healthcare is a human right. Did you know that, Jeff? Healthcare is a human right.
Yeah, I've heard that, and of course it's just like, well, I suppose food is a human right. But,
of course it is. And cable TV is also, and so is air conditioning. It's a human right.
Yeah. I think St. Paul said, if you don't work, you don't eat.
Unless you're an illegal alien, then you get treated better than many of our veterans are treated. It's upside down and backwards what's going on. What I find amazing is not how much money it takes people to not work and become lazy and non-productive. What's amazing to me is how little money it takes. And there's people in my neighborhood like that who won't work because of fear of losing their government subsidies.
If they worked as hard at not working as they would at work, they would be successful.
That's right. But the communists understand human nature. The communists understand how to manipulate human nature. The communists take advantage of human nature, and that's how they achieve success, isn't it?
Yeah, and they also know how to degrade human nature, how to appeal to the worst in us, and how to get us to behave badly in a way that hurts us and helps them. And that's what this part of this is all about.
Absolutely.
And it's fairly obvious, I think. I think for many of us who see it, it's fairly obvious what's going on. And it's very hard to cope with, because once you guarantee these people the right to something, look, the United States it's over $20 trillion in debt, and most of it is social payments. Same thing with Germany, right. Japan, all the Western countries are going broke over this. This whole thing is breaking the bank, and it's getting to the point where we cannot, a country like Germany, who is a wealthy country, cannot, its U-boats don't work, it doesn't have a working tank battalion, they're going broke taking care of illegal immigrants. They're going broke giving welfare to their people. If you build this welfare state, it will swallow you, because human need and these rights that you enumerate, the right to have free stuff, it never ends. It's never going to end. And the politicians find out they can be elected by promising it, and then you've got Elizabeth Warren. You got Pocahontas out there promising it.
Right.
And
well, even Hillary's distancing herself from Pocahontas. Even Hillary is. We got a caller on hold here. We got Fred in Wisconsin. Good morning, Fred.
How you guys doing? You were just mentioning something about labor. I wanted to point out something in Wisconsin. I was lucky enough to meet the gentleman that owns 60 McDonald's franchises throughout the state of Wisconsin. And the biggest challenge they have is finding anybody to work. In Madison, Wisconsin, there's so many programs and whatnot going around that they're having a horrible time. They start people at $10 an hour, and they can be at $15 an hour if they show any incentive. But it was just a quick comment because I noticed it here, and I don't know if it's everywhere, but this part of the country, with all the subsidizing they have going on, these young people just don't want to partake in the labor programs anymore.
Well, so the gentleman who owns McDonald's is competing with the government to get workers, isn't he?
It seems that way. I mean, this guy's pretty straight up, and I was just lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time, and I just started talking to the guy. But I just see it all the time around here. When you get outside of the main cities, I mean, Milwaukee is going to be the home of the Democratic Convention. And if they decide to broker somebody or whatever they're going to do, it's all going to be right here. So between Madison and Milwaukee, that's the hub of the left in the state of Wisconsin, and we'll just have to see how it plays out. But I just wanted to comment on that labor thing because your guys are dead on. It's just amazing what's happened.
It is. Anything else, Fred?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for the call, sir. The call number is 800-313-9443. The communists are masters at manipulation of human behavior, aren't they, sir?
Oh yeah, and of course, if you want power, that's what power is largely predicated on. You have to get it from somewhere. You have to get it from human beings. You have to wheedle them.
I do know.
And people don't realize they're being tricked when they're being offered something that they shouldn't really take. They're being tempted to behaviors and things that will degrade them, degrade their character, degrade the society. Imagine the tax base in this country, how it's eroded, just in the fact that so much productivity is held back. It's not that we don't produce enough people, that we have this demand for more labor from overseas. It's that the people that are here won't work because our the people that would be doing those jobs now have an incentive not to do anything.
Right. Well, it's all changed in the 1930s. Prior to the 1930s, welfare was at the county level, and we had thousands. There's more than 3,000 counties in the United States. Thousands of what were called county farms. If you did not have a home and you were hungry, you went to the county farm where there was clean housing, decent housing, work to do. The people that lived there produced the food that they consumed. A surplus was sold. And I know on my mom's side of the family, they were very proud that they never had to take public assistance during the Great Depression. And that's when all this kicked in, when people started getting a check in the mail instead of having to take up residence at the county farm. Being at the county farm was a matter of humiliation, something not to be proud of, something everybody in the community knew that you were a resident at the county farm. And people would go there until they could find gainful employment and leave and establish their own home outside the county farm. That was a system that worked. What we've got now guarantees generational participation, doesn't it, Jeff?
Oh, yeah. We're degrading. I'm not sure, how do you change a culture that you've created over decades of people not living
it would not
without
be easy.
Working?
What I've said to people in the past, if I hated black people and wanted to make sure that they never, ever advanced, I would put in place exactly what the Democrats have put in place with social welfare programs, because what's been put in place by the Democrats will keep the black population impoverished and on the plantation, the welfare plantation forever, generationals of them. That's what it'll do, won't it, Jeff?
Yes. Yes, it will.
Absolutely. We got a caller on hold from. We haven't heard. Go ahead.
It's the same thing with the Indians and the reservations.
Absolutely.
If you want to destroy people, you start taking care of them.
Well, that's the model.
And then,
the model of what was done with the American Indians is what was transposed on the American blacks. Basically the same type of system. The slight differences. We got a caller on hold here. We got a break coming up. Paul in New Jersey. Good morning, Paul.
Hello, gentlemen. Can you hear me?
Go ahead. You're on the air.
Yes.
Yeah, when you're talking about the Bible telling people to work, that's not really the people to go to. For one, the story is that Jesus was a carpenter, but he ended up quitting and going around telling people what to do and basically not working himself. Likewise, the Apostle Paul, he was a tax collector, and then he went into the religious racket also, where he would go from town to town and basically live off other people. So when you set them up as paragons of people with a work ethic, it's just not true. They quit working, and they went around selling that.
Well, that was not an easy life,
story.
or a life of luxury or wealth. That was a very difficult thing to do, and they were getting a place to sleep and a little bit of food, and that was about it, Paul. Well, Paul, we got a break
right,
here.
Right, but they quit working. Right.
That was work. That was work. Thank you for your call, sir.
No, it's not.
We got a break.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Okay, we're back, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. J.R. Moore here on Wednesday, the 11th of December. Jeff, this will be our last live show next week. I should say next week will be our last live show for 2019. And I want to summarize, and I want your feedback on this and your response. I want to encourage people, based on what they're hearing every Wednesday when you and I speak, to be sure they're registered to vote, be sure all the conservative friends are registered to vote, and that they actually do vote in the primaries and the general election, especially for President Donald J. Trump, and support any and all Constitution-supporting candidates that might be on the ballot, and make sure that they understand who these candidates are. What do you think, Jeff?
Sorry. Yeah, no, it's a good idea to have people think about their status as voters and do their duty to vote.
Hillary had 3 million illegal votes last election, the best I can tell. We need at least an additional 6 million on top of what we had last time to make sure that the vote for President Trump is so clearly overwhelming. That's what needs to happen, doesn't it?
Yeah, the left is engaged in really serious vote drives. And they're working to bring people out to the polls. And the Democratic Party is larger than the Republican Party in terms of the number of registered voters. They just don't vote as frequently as Republicans. And
well, that's been going on for decades. There's been efforts spearheaded by Democrats. Motor voter, where when you renew your license plate in your car, you're encouraged to vote. They have voter registration set up at libraries. To get people to register to vote who would never take the time otherwise to go to the courthouse and register to vote. That's been going on for decades, hasn't it?
Yeah, and they've become better at organizing it in recent years. Obama's organization, the people supporting Obama, were very good at getting the vote out. Of course, they were getting a larger percentage of the minority vote, particularly black vote out. There was a lot of motivation because Obama was African American. Right. There was more energy in that. A lot of energy. Effort.
It was mostly based on emotion, but the Democrats are very concerned because the African American vote is now swinging towards President Trump, and a very sizable percentage, and that has them very worried, doesn't it?
Yeah, there wasn't as much enthusiasm for Hillary, and it affected her vote totals. I think that, President Trump before he was vilified by the media, President Trump has had a lot of black friends over the years. And so when he gets called a racist, a lot of people in the black community don't believe it because they know that the president, being a celebrity, has had black friends and that he is not a racist. And they know better. And so they don't understand it, and they like President Trump. President Trump is good at relating to working-class people, so that just like many white working-class people, black working-class people can relate to him. So he's got this, and same thing with Hispanics. I think his numbers among Hispanics is high.
That's right. Jeff Rush.